Okay. I'm joined by Becky today, and Becky is just going to talk to us a little bit about autism and what it means for her and her son. We do a lot of awareness raising through the multi-schools, and we talk very positively about the things we do in schools, but we know that out there in society there isn't always great perceptions and there's challenges for families, and we'll hear a bit more about that from Becky. So Becky, thanks for joining us. Could you just start by telling us a little bit about your son?
Yep, he's 4 years old. He's got regressive autism, so it didn't show for us until he was around 18 months. Up until then, he was talking, had a range of food he would eat. He was quite independent. It's like he went to bed and he forgot. He forgot how to talk. He forgot how to feed himself. He stopped eating. He stopped sleeping. And he is now diagnosed with autism, anxiety, separation anxiety, global development delay, hypermobility, sensory processing disorder, possibly ADHD, pica, and he's just been referred to London for testing for another eating disorder.
Okay, thank you. So that obviously paints a little bit picture, and your boy's name?
It's Oliver.
Oliver. So yeah, paints a picture of Oliver, and I'm sure there'll be other parents that listen to this that will be able to resonate with some of the things that you're going to say. So Becky, would you just be able to tell everyone why you got in touch with the multi-schools first of all?
In the last couple of months, it's been 2 occasions that it's actually bothered me with actually experienced discrimination. I've been told that he should be taken home because there's other children about and they'll catch what he's got. I've had children come up to me and say he scares me, and all Oliver was doing at that point was spinning. One of his stims is to spin, and that is all he was doing. And they were like, he scares me. The one that really bothered me though was the one that I should take him home because that other people are going to catch it. And it's that thing. I know to pick my battles with Oliver, and I just kind of stood there, and to be honest, I just didn't know what to say to them. I was like, "You're going to catch autism," and it's the ignorance that people still believe that it's contagious, that he's diseased. He's got to be kept locked away. We're 2022. Why can't he go out? Why can't he have a life?
Absolutely. And so as a parent and as a mum, like, how does that make you feel when that's the kind of comments you get from the general public?
It's just that I know that obviously the older generation, some of them find it harder because obviously they grew up where people with autism, learning dis were locked away. But I don't know, it just makes you feel crap, to be honest, because, you know, it's bad enough I tried to find him a nursery, nobody would take him. And it's just like, why? Why does he have to, like, he's such a loving person, like, when we go to certain places and they like, oh, Oliver's here, they love him to bits. And it's like, once you see past his disability, he is a loving child.
Yeah,
But you've got to see past it first.
absolutely. And it's the choices that people make, isn't it? Because people don't choose to have autism, but people can choose their reactions. People can choose the way that they make accommodations or reasonable adjustments, as people say. I mean, you spoke about the nurseries there not wanting to take Oliver. What were some of the reasons that they gave, Becky?
Just that they wouldn't be able to meet his needs. That's all they said. Some of them didn't even get back to me. Some just said, I'll ring you back. I'm actually waiting for a phone back for a nursery for 2 years now because they keep telling me they were going to phone me. And it's just like, I've found him a nursery now. Yes, I have to drive for it. He's happy, he's settled, and they're so good with him.
Yeah.
And this has been my worry for schooling. Like, if you can't cope with him in a nursery, how are you going to cope with him in a school?
Yeah.
But they didn't even meet him. They were just going off what was written on paper.
That's one of my big frustrations, actually, is when people judge children on a piece of paper, because like you say, you can never really get a feel for a young person by what's written down. You have to meet them. So I
Yeah.
definitely agree with you. In terms of, like, I know we said about the impact it has on you, and when comments like that are given to you, what impact does it have on Oliver, do you think, when he's not accepted, whether that's out in the public, or whether that's even going to nursery or then onto school?
I don't think it personally affects him because with his global development delay, his understanding is at 6 months old. So he couldn't care less. He'll just continue to do what he's doing. It's when I stop him from doing it, and then he has a meltdown because I've stopped him from doing like one of his stims when we were out,
Mm.
is he has to touch everybody with a finger, then lick his finger. So he's not licking them, he's just touching them. And everybody was fine with it. I explained on this train when we were out, he's autistic, this is one of his stims, people were doing it with him, they're engaging with him. But that one family that said that is contagious. So I was trying to keep him from going like towards them. And the person who came out with us to support him, she got a massive bite on her arm because we stopped him. He didn't understand why we're stopping him. He's had a meltdown with his sensory. He doesn't like being touched unless it's on his terms. So we're holding him back. So he's just sunk his teeth into her because he's non-verbal. He can't tell you, leave me alone, I'm not doing this. So his way of doing it is the only way he knows how to, and that was the bite.
I mean, most people who like and follow our page will know the answer to the fact that autism isn't contagious. But just to make it really clear, because we were posting this online, autism isn't contagious. But what is contagious is people's negative thoughts, unfortunately, sometimes, because people get a perception of what autism is, and then people jump on the bandwagon and almost think it's strange or weird. Because so it's stimming, Becky. I mean, obviously, I work with children with autism, so I understand or have some understanding around stimming. But how would you explain stimming to somebody else who doesn't understand it? Like, why does Oliver need to stim?
It's to help regulate him. So if he's overwhelmed or anxious or something, he'll do one of his stims, which is flapping, spinning, touching people and licking items like furniture is also another one, but we do try and make him not do that one because I'd rather he didn't. But it just helps to regulate him and makes him feel a sense of the world. It's it's just like when you're sitting there and you're like tapping, it's exactly the same. You're tapping your foot on the floor, he's flapping his hands. It's
Yeah.
just his way of doing it.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things. Obviously, in schools, we talk a lot about stimming because we want children to understand that it's something natural that people will do. But as you said earlier, Becky, it's parents and maybe some older generations that don't understand it, which is why we need to do things like this. And I guess the question I also wanted to ask you is, how do we then like change society's views on autism, maybe other learning difficulties? Like, have you got any ways how we could do that?
I think it's just education. Like there's so much out there that you can just type in autism on Google and there's so much on there that will just give you the basics. I think certain places should advertise their autism friendly. Um, so you actually don't feel like you're being judged when you're walking and then having to walk around apologizing to everybody all the time.
Mm.
And then like the when we were on the train, it's the autism. It wasn't the autism. It was East Anglia Railway Museum. I actually emailed them after our visit, and I said, "Do your staff have training on autism?" Because they were like staring at him and like didn't know what to do with him at certain points. And I haven't even received an email back, and that was last year.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's two things in there, like you said, it's education and it's also training for staff who are working with the general public and actually need that understanding around autism.
I think everybody who works with other people should have basic training in it because you don't know who you're going to meet every day. Even people in retail, they're going to come across autistic people, people with learning disability, deaf people who need to sign, blind people, visually impaired, should I say. You need basic training in all this because you're the ones working with them, you're on the front line.
Yeah,
And if you can't talk to them or help them, you've not met their needs.
absolutely. I think that's a really strong message and something to finish on, Becky, is that people do need to educate themselves more, whether that's through training, whether that's through going and doing their own research, especially if you're working with the public, because we'd make accommodations for potentially people with physical impairments or physical challenges, that the same should be for things that we can't always see. And that's one of my frustrations as well. So I don't know if there's any kind of final messages, Becky, that you want to give on this subject, or kind of closing comments.
It's just literally that old saying that everyone knows, don't judge a book by its cover, because you're missing out on such an amazing person by doing that. just because he's autistic or he's not wearing clothes today because of his sensory and he'll just be in a nappy. He's got a dummy and he's age 4, you know, people look, people judge. And I'm sorry, but it's ugly.
Absolutely. Thank you, Becky.
It's okay.